All right, hello and welcome to another Microvellum-LIVE event. My name is Clay, and on behalf of our team, we are glad you took the time to join us here on this 6th day of September. We're streaming here to you from our headquarters office in Southern Oregon. These live educational events are hosted weekly for your benefit, and whether you're a Microvellum user already or just looking to learn a little bit more about our software, either way, we're glad you are here with us. So if this is the first time that you've participated in these events, just take a few moments to explain how today's session is going to work. As you've already noticed, we are using GoToWebinar as our streaming platform. And this is the palette that you see docked on your screen. And that's your line of communication to our team, not just to our presenters, but also to the techs that we have working behind the scenes to answer your questions. So we're looking forward to helping you, so please keep those questions coming. In case you're wondering, this webinar is being recorded, and you should receive a link to it in your email tomorrow. All right, so today we're going to be hearing from Lucas Marquez. For the next hour or so, we're going to be learning about Report Designer with a focus on conditional formatting. The information that will be covered today is considered more on an intermediate level training. And so, Lucas, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. All right, so on my screen here, we should be seeing the Toolbox OEM 2018 up and ready to go. I'm currently running a 15.5 build, which we'll be having that general release coming up here shortly. So you should be looking forward to that. And as Clay was mentioning, we're going to be doing an intermediate level training with reports today. We're going to talk a little bit about conditional formatting, but we're also going to be going into a few other things, such as the different band types that are available within the Report Designer, how they all interact with each other, the different rendering orders and printing orders of those bands, and with the emphasis on the data bands and the group header bands specifically today. So we can get to see how those work and really start developing the reports up nicely. So to open up Report Designer, I'm going to go to Toolbox Setup. I'm going to go to Design Reports, and I'm going to be selecting a manufacturing report today. Manufacturing reports are a report that opens up in the processing station. And I have a report. Let's see, which screen did that go on? Oh, that's on my other screen. Let me drag that over here. So what we're going to do, we're just going to do a brand new report. If you remember from one of the last sessions we did, there's 3 buttons down here. And based on kind of what you're trying to do, you can select different buttons. Open report is going to use an existing one. New report from existing will create a new report using an existing report as a template, and new report is just a blank report. So I'm just going to do a new blank report here, and I'm just going to give this a name of a product list. And as you can tell from that name, pretty much what we're going to be building today is a product list based off of a work order that I have that has about 108 cabinets in it or so, just to give us a good amount of data to see what's going on. So I'm going to open up this report project work order that I have, and that's going to allow me to select the different tables for the work order that I want to use. So today we're just going to start with one table, just the products table here. We're not going to really getting into a master detail report just yet. Once we have the foundations of the data band and the group header bands, then we start doing some more complex master detail reports. But today we'll just do a list report for the products table here. So we have a list of all the products that are in our work order. Clicking OK there is going to save that report, so then I can open up my report and I can see that there. Again, if I wanted to modify what selections I made, I can always right-click on this report, go to Setup Selected Report, and that'll bring me back to that same screen where I can change maybe table selections to add more information to it. For now, I'm just going to double-click on that report. We'll get a quick preview here. It's going to be blank at this point because it's a brand new report. There's nothing configured on it. And then I'll hit the Designer button to open up the report in the Report Designer software. And let me drag that over here as well. So if you were here for the last 2 sessions, you're starting to get pretty familiar with this page here. Just a quick recap for those who might not have seen it. The top little ribbon up here gives you a lot of different formatting options for the components you're going to be placing, such as the fonts you're going to be using, different alignments, borders, text areas. The page gives you a different page layout, shows you different information that's available, so I could not show my grid, I could show my grid. Let's see, set margins, orientation, sizes, columns, and a watermark if you want a watermark on your page. And the layout is going to be used for the components. Once components are on here, they'll become available, and so you can start aligning components to your grid that's on your page. On the right-hand side here, we have our panels. There are 3 panels currently. If it's your first time opening it up, you're going to get a message that says you want to open it up in professional mode, basic mode, Basic mode is just going to be a very minimized version of this. I usually use professional mode because I like to see all the options that are available to me, such as in the properties here for my page. I can see all the different options that are here. You have your dictionary, which contains your data set. So here I can see the product table that I selected when I set up this report and the different columns that are available for me to display information on the report. We also have access to different things such as system variables, which are just page numbers or line numbers, and different functions, which are pre-programmed to do different math statements, different programming shortcuts, and totaling, such as the sum, which we're going to be using the sum today. And the last panel that we have is the report tree, which just gives you an outline of the report, makes it a little easy to navigate and select different components that are on there. The left-hand side is just the toolbar, gives you quick access to different buttons that are there. You can see I have quite a few that I use all the time. And if you don't have them set up as a quick access, you can just access them here from the little drop-downs as well. So the first thing I'm going to do in this report is I'm going to select my drop-down. I'm just going to go to the main report option for the properties. And I'm a Visual Basic programmer, so I like to use Visual Basic. The syntax is pretty easy to understand. If you know C#, you can keep it on C#. Just a little bit of a different syntax whenever you're writing your different expressions. The last thing that we had talked about in the last session was using expressions on a report. And as we build our report today, we're going to be getting into expressions. So just a quick little recap of that. An expression is something that you place on here. It can be something as simple as text, and it can be something as complicated as math. The main thing I want to remind you of with expressions is if it's going to be an expression, needs to be evaluated, which is not just a string text or something like that. They do need to exist inside of the curly brackets, because the curly brackets is what tells the program to evaluate an expression, such as the product name will then display the product name instead of just product.name. All right, so that was a quick little recap, so we can jump right into it. So the first thing we want to talk about today is going to be the data, or the different band types that are available in a report. There's quite a few different types in here. You may not use all of them, but most of them are going to be used as you start developing your report. The main data band, or the main band type that exists for a report that you need to have is a data band. The data band is really the base component of a report. If you don't have a data band on there, you're not going to get a report to look how you want, if you can even get a report to work at all. So the data band, just keep in mind, data band is the main component there. Some of the other ones in here are the report title. The report title is a band that you place on the report that will print out once per report. So it doesn't matter how many pages you have, it's just going to print it out once. So what a report title band is good for is setting the title of your report. So if I want to add a text component on here, I can come in and say this is my product list. And when I hit OK to that, I'll see that that's going to be my title. So now if I preview this report, I have my title on there, product list. So again, that report title band prints out once per page. So if there are those top level information that you want to print on a report, but you don't want on each page, you can use the report title band to do so. The next level band that's available is the page header. And similar to what the report title band is, it lets you print out data, but this one does it once per page. So it's not restricted just to the first page. It can be restricted to the first page if you set certain properties on it. But usually if you're using a page header, you don't want it to be restricted. And so just really quick here, if we go look at the properties of this page header, we can see that we have this print on property of a page header. And in the quick drop down, we can see what different options we have. We can print it on all pages, except all of them except for the first, the last, maybe only, neither the first or the last. And then again, the opposite of those, only the first, last, or first and last page. So I'm going to leave it set to all pages for now. Usually some good data to put on a page header is information such as the page number. And so we can do so by coming to our dictionary. We can check our system variables, which has, as we discussed, some of those variables such as a page number, maybe a line number. So I'm just going to drop on this page end of M by clicking and dragging onto my page header band. Size that a little bit here. And so now when we preview that, we'll see that we have page 1 of 1. If we wanted to make some formatting changes, we can. So here I can see it's set to align to the left. Maybe I want that line to the right, just that way it's lined up a little bit nicer. You'll notice that difference if it's a bigger component here. If I line it to the left, I mean, it'll push all the way over. So I just wanted to line to the right, and then I'm going to shrink that back down. So when we look at that, what we're going to see is we have our page number with our report title. And so right now I only have one page, so we're not going to see how this appears on the second page, third page, and so on. But once we start adding some data, we'll be able to see that. Some other information that might be useful for placing on a report is the date. Some people like to see, what date the report was actually printed out on. So we can place that up here. And if we preview it, we'll see that we get the date in there. There's also a report author. Report author is going to be whoever created the report. So sometimes it's just nice to place on there. That one's not on there so much. You won't see those on our reports very often. But yeah, so we have the page and today, so I'm going to actually align that to the right as well. So we'll be able to see the date there. And I can see that I don't have enough space. I'm only showing the time on there. So let's see, maybe there's actually, I'm going to do a little shortcut here. So we'll do to short date. So this is a little method that you can use, to short date string, which should remove the time from the date, so that way you only have the actual day on there coming up. So if we preview that, so we'll see there that we only have the date, we don't have the time showing up. So those are the page header and the report title band. So let me shrink that up here so I don't have any extra space. And those are kind of components that work on their own. And what I mean by that is they're not really related to any other components, and they don't interact with any other components. They just work on their own. The report title band is its own data, its own band. Page header is its own band. From here on, when we start talking about the group header, headers, column headers, data, and so on, these are all bands that kind of work together with each other. That way, they interact with each other and change the behavior of each other. So these all work together, so we got to know how they interact. Just real quick here, there's a question. So where do we find those codes, those code strings like the today? I'm assuming we're talking about this to short date string, or are we talking about the today? If you're talking about just the today, they're available from your dictionary under the system variables. There's a whole bunch of them in here that you can use. Again, also from your dictionary here, you can go to system variables and select just whatever one you want and drag and drop them onto there. Short date string. So that's just one that I know. It's a Visual Basic thing. So, I learned that through studying and just finding different things to do it. If you ever run into anything and you're using Visual Basic style coding on your report, you can always type in, vb.net, how to shorten a date or something like that. Microsoft has really good documentation, all these different methods and stuff you can use for strings and for dates and for all kinds of stuff. So it just takes a little bit of research. That one's not specific. That one's not specific to Report Designer. That's just the programming language, Visual Basic. So. All right, so we did the page header, the report title. So we're going to start placing some data on here. So the data band, as I was saying, is the main component. And essentially what the data band does is it loops through a table, whatever table is specified on the data band, and it loops through each row that's in that table, and it's going to print out whatever information you select for it. So I'm going to select the data band, and I'm just going to paste it on or draw it onto here. And the first screen we get is asking us what we want our data source to be. So because I selected products and this is a product list, I'm going to select my products table to use that. And if we view our data and our products here, because just to show you the kind of data that we have. So I'm going to right click on my products table here and view data. And so we can see this data table. And so each one of these is a row. So what the data band is going to do is it's going to go through each of these rows and print out whatever information that we reference. So for this one, what we're going to be showing is we're going to be showing the product's name. So we can see here we have our name column with a different name. We're going to be showing the quantity, the width, height, and depth. So what we should have is for each row that is in here, we should get a name, width, height, and depth, and a quantity showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my dictionary, and actually I'm going to do this a little bit different. So there's two ways we can do this. We can draw a data band, select the data source, and then drag and drop from our dictionary onto there and place it wherever we want. If we do the drag and drop like this method, then it requires us to resize these different components to whatever size we need them. What we can also do is from our dictionary, we can drag directly onto the report. And so what we're going to see here is our data source is already selected on products because it knew that we were dragging the products table onto the report. And so now we get a little slightly different screen here where it actually wants us to select the data that we want to display. So here I'm going to select my quantity, my name, my width, my height, and my depth. If I wanted to change this order, maybe I selected it in the wrong order, I can use these arrows to move them around, and it'll change the way that they're being displayed. So right now I just wanted a quantity, name, width, height, depth. Here at the bottom, you're going to see a couple different things. Here we have a header and a footer option. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a header band for us, which interacts with the data band. And so I'm going to leave that checked here, and we'll hit OK. And so there we see we got our header band. So let's talk about the header band here briefly now that it's on the page. So the header band is used to output headers, essentially, just like it says there, and it's used together with the data band. And so the way the header band works is it's printed out once before the data band gets printed. So it's going to print out a quantity, name, width, height, and depth title. That way we know the data that we're looking at, what it's actually referring to. So if we were to preview the report like this, we'll see that I get each row of my database in that table, my products table is being printed out here. So I have several pages, 4 pages. You can see here page 404, page 304, 204, 104. And on each page, I'm getting a quantity, name, width, height, and depth printed out. You'd also want to note that my report title band, it's only printing once at the first page, product list. I don't have that showing up on the secondary pages. So if I wanted that title to be on each page, I'd probably want to put that in a page header band instead of a title band. But just to show you how that works there. I'm going to do a little bit of a formatting here. I'm going to select all my components. I'm going to center them here. And then I'm going to select these components. I'm going to give them a underline just to help with the formatting view a little bit. So we can see how using our little formatting up here, we're able to change the way we format it. We'll do a couple other little formatting things in here to show you some cool tips you can do. So I'm going to select my top components again, and I'm just going to give them all a border. So we can preview that. We can see now I have a little rectangle around the different titles there. And, maybe I want my columns to show up so that way I know exactly what columns are related to as well. So if we were to preview that, we're going to start seeing that we're able to format a report, very specific to how maybe our company wants it. So let's see, what other bands do we have in here? So our header bands, we have column headers. We're not going to get too much into column headers today. You'll see how the group headers work, and they work similar to the group headers and to the regular header band. It just allows you to specify columns if you're using columns on a data band as well. And we'll be getting into those in future reports where we start building more complex stuff as well. One thing you'll notice in here is from about the column, from data all the way up, each header band has an associated footer band. So what that is it's pretty much closing off a condition there. So right now, the way this prints out, the print order of this is going to be my page header, and you can see I have my print options enabled. So let me go to page. So I have this show order enabled, so it shows me the print order that it's going to be printed out in. So I can see my page header is 0, gets printed out first, then my report title band gets printed, then my header band, and then my data band gets printed out. And so for each of the bands, you have a opposite band or related band that closes a loop or closes a section. And so what I can do here is I'm going to bring on a page header or a page footer band here. And essentially what that does here is if I had anything else down here, another data band, it'll allow me to specify a new header, or a better way of explaining it is that this header band's only going to apply to this data band, because anything after this data band, I have a group footer band closing off. So if I were to drop on a products data band again here, for example, and we'll just do item number and name, we'll just keep that one pretty basic here. We'll see that I'm able to put in another header band here, and I'll put in another footer band. and preview it. So we'll see is we have our quantity name with height and depth. And then once I get down to here, we'll see that instead of it using the original headers that were there, it's starting to use a new header because I closed off that loop there. So it knows, okay, after that first data band, we're no longer going to be using the header band for that one. Good practice is that if you put on a header band that has a closing option, such as a report summary, page footer, group footer, footer band, you'd want to put on that closing loop. That way you have a complete report and you're not getting any unexpected results. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to put a page footer here, and I'm going to also put a report. Oops, that's the wrong one. Put a report summary here as well. So you can see page footer got placed at the bottom, and then I have my report summary got placed right there as well. Where footers and stuff come into play where they're good to use, or if you're going to be doing like summations or something like that, allows you to place data at the end of a grouping. And we're going to be doing some group header bands, and we'll see how we can do the sums in the group footer band as well. So let me get rid of some of this extra data here that I don't need. So we'll get rid of these guys. And so now we have a pretty basic report that has a page header, report title, header bands, and products with the footer summary band and the page footer there. So if you preview it, we'll see, we have a pretty complete report as far as the information that's being displayed, but the data that's being displayed isn't really organized in any method. It's kind of hard to understand exactly what's going on with there. And so what I wanted to spend some time today going over was the grouping conditions, such as group header bands and the group footer bands, and how you can apply those to a report to start to consolidate information and do sums. Sorry, to consolidate some information and do some sums of the information that's in there. So if we were to look at this data, a couple things that we might want to know is, where this data belongs to, where this data belongs to. I didn't show you the project that this was built off of, but the project that it was built off of contained 3 rooms, and each room had 38 products in it. So when I'm looking at this data, I'm not able to see any organization to it, what rooms these belong to. So one of the most common grouping conditions that we do is to show products by the room they belong to. So what we're going to do is we're going to start using the group header bands. And so I'm going to select the group header band condition, and I'm just going to place this group header band between the data band, and I'm going to select the condition that I want it to group by. So like we were talking about, we want to be able to see what room the products actually belong to. So I'm going to come to my products. I'm going to just browse through and see what kind of options that I have available to me. It might take a little bit of, if you're not familiar with the database, it might take a little bit of trial and error to see exactly what you want to do. But we try to name everything as easily as possible. That way it's easy to do this. We can see we have a link ID location, which is the individual location identifier. But we also have a room name. So I'm going to use the room name for this one. And I placed that wrong, so I'm going to put that up here. And so if we go and preview the report, what we're going to see is not much has changed, at least not much that's noticeable. A couple things that have changed on, or one thing that has changed on here is the order of the products that are being displayed. You probably won't notice that right off bat if you weren't looking at the data, but it does change the order of the data that's in there. There's no identifier. We're still not able to see what room it belongs to or anything like that. There's no separators or anything. So what we can do is we can come in and we say, okay, well, we know our condition is our products.room. We're not displaying anything about our room. We're displaying our product's quantity, the name, width, height, and depth. But I want to be able to display the room name as well. So one way of doing this that isn't going to really consolidate data, but it'll display the room for each product here just to show you that the order of the products has changed, is we can go to our products and we'll go to our room names. We'll just drag the room name onto the products data band here. So now when we preview this report, we're going to see is a little bit of a mess actually, but we can see each room. So we have all of our room ones together. We have all of our room ones, and then here we switch to room 2, room 2, room 2, and then we switch over to room 3 right around here. So now we have all of our room 3 showing up, but we have 10 pages of data. It's a lot of paper to burn through, and I know from experience that we can get this down to a lot less pages than that if we wanted to. So one of the ways that you can do that is by setting the data that you're viewing onto the condition that you've set. So what I mean by that here is instead of placing the product's room name on my product's data band, because what that's going to do is that's going to cause it to get printed out. Let me move this back over. There we go. Because that's going to print out the room name for each individual product. I only want it to print out once whenever this grouping condition changes. So by placing that on my group header band, essentially what I'm saying is that as I'm looping through these rows, place that back up here real quick. All right. So essentially by placing this up here in the group header band is what I'm telling the report designer to do is that once the grouping condition has changed, then display what the room name is. So it should just, so what I'm expecting to happen here is that I'll be getting one line that says room 1, and then I won't see another room until my room is changed to room 2, and then I won't see another one until my room is changed to room 3. So if we preview this now, we'll see, okay, there we go. I have room 1 printed out once, room 2 printed out once, room 3 printed out once. And now I'm back down to 4 pages instead of 10 pages. So, it's 6 pages less. That's, over time, it's a lot of money that's going to be saved. A couple little style things. I like to change the color of these groupings. That way they're a little easier to see. I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to give this guy a border, and I am going to change his properties. I'm going to go to the brush. We talked about this a little bit last time too. The brush is going to have the different color options that you can set for a component. So right now I have my group header band. I have my group header band selected. So the properties that I do, it's going to change that brush color for my group header band as a whole. If I wanted to change the color just for my product's room name, I could come to the room name and I can select that one and change just that component's color. And so the difference between that is here I have my room name as long as it's highlighted versus the entire length of the page. So that one's really preference as far as how you want it to be viewed on there. So I'm just going to change the whole group we'll do light gray here. So you're able to see room 1, room 2, and room 3 with the different products. Even there, our data is not very consolidated. We still have a 2-door bases, open bases, and it's kind of out of order. So we'll want to look at how we can change that order and how we can group some of these things together. That way we're consolidating data even more. Before I move on, let me check the questions real quick and see what we got. Yep, so MSDN is a very good source. They have a lot of different developer information there. Yeah, so if there's extra space in there, how you're saying there, change the single space. Usually if there's extra space, it's because one of the conditions here or one of the heights of the bands aren't correct. So, this is a direct relation to how it's going to print out. So if I have this stretched out to, about 3 times as big as the data I'm showing and I preview it, I'm going to get about that same amount of space on here. So you can see just that little space change put me up to 13 pages. So making sure your components are all sized correctly is a big deal because it is a direct relationship between how it's printed and how it's configured. So a couple of little style things that we can do to a data band while we're on data bands here is that we can change the different styles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Style Designer because what I want to do is I want to configure a style that I can use for my odd numbers on the data band. And what I mean by that here is I have an odd style and an even style. So what this will do is for every odd row that is referencing in the data table, it'll select a certain style. And here I don't have any styles yet. Or I can set one for an even style. So for every even row, it'll set a certain style. So I'm going to go to the Style Designer. I'm going to add a new style. And you see there's quite a few different styles on here. So I'm just going to do a regular text component, and I'm just going to change the color that I want to use. And I want to use, let's use beige. So I'll set that to beige. So now that's a style that's in my style designer. So if I click on my data band, I can come in and I can say, but for every odd style, I want to use my style 1 that I have set. So we'll see how we can now alternate colors in a data band between those different options. So if you're using a data band, that's a little cool thing. Using the odd styles and even styles isn't available in a group header band. So I wanted to show you that before we got onto that portion of it. So we'll go back to page 1. As we saw, we still have a lot of data on here, and it was kind of unorganized. So there's a few things that we want to do. So we're probably going to want to add some more group header bands. Oh, and actually, before I want to talk to you about the group footer bands. Sorry, got a little ahead of myself there. So group footer bands are pretty useful. So if we look here, we can see that I have a new grouping, room 2, that's showing up middle of the page, page 2. Room 3 is showing up kind of the middle of the page of room 3 there. I apologize. My throat's been bothering me. We have a couple fires up in the mountains, and the smoke has been getting to me. So I might mute myself every once in a while just so I can cough a little bit. So anyways, what we're talking about, group header bands. So we have these groupings that are starting in the middle of the page. Some people are okay with that. Some people don't like that. Some people would rather, if a new grouping happens, to have it show up on a new page there. So you can use a group footer band to do that. And so we'll bring this in, and I'm going to bring in a group footer band. And I'm going to make sure that's underneath the data band. And so I want to make sure that's underneath the data band. And so the reason I'm doing that is because, as we were saying, the different bands are kind of related to each other. They all, other than the report title band and the page header band, they all really interact with each other. And specifically the data band and the group header bands, they interact with each other, quite a bit. And so the way I like to see this is kind of like a tree. It's like a tree structure. The data band is, ground level. It's the ground. As you start spreading, going up from the group header, up from the data band, that's the trunk that comes out, and then branches that spread. And as you start going down, those are the roots that go into the ground and start spreading out. So each group header band that's above it should have a group footer band below it, and those two are actually directly related to each other. So if I go to this group footer band and I look at the different properties I have a property called new page after. So I'm going to set that property to true. And what we're going to see down here is if the value of this property is true, then after output of a band, a new page will be generated. And so what this is going to do is, after its related grouping is done, it's going to split off to a new page. So if I look up to the one, from this data band down, this is the first group footer band. So if I look, or group footer band. So if I look to the first group header band, so I know after my grouping of products.room, it's going to do a new page after that. So now if we preview this report, we're going to see exactly that. We have our room 1, we have our room 2, and room 3 on a new page. That's kind of how the group footer band works there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple new grouping conditions on here to help sort the data and start consolidating it a little bit more, because now we're back up to 7 pages because of that, new page after grouping that we did. So one of the things we can do is another common request that comes through is to group products by their name. So we can come to our products and we can group our products by its name. And let me just bring that up here. And so now what's going to happen, I'm not going to place any data on this group header band yet. So it's not going to consolidate any information, but what this will actually do is it'll change the order of the information that's being printed out. So if we preview this now, what we're going to see is we have our 1-door bases, 1-door talls, 1-door upper, 2-door bases. They're all so all the products are grouped together. But what we're noticing is that we're getting a new page after each new product type that's being printed. So if I go back to page 1, I can look and say, okay, well, I know I have a new page property set for my group footer band. That's right there, new page after, set to true. So let me see what its related group header band is. And I can see that it's related group header band, so the same number away from the data band as the group footer. So I have 1 away, 1 up, so I can see, okay, so it's actually being related to my products.name. So after every product name changes, it's printing out on a new page. So that's not behavior that I want to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another group footer band just to kind of close off that loop there and say, okay, so, after my product's name is done, I'm not going to do anything that different than I normally would. And so then after my product's room name grouping is done, then I'm going to come down and print out a new page. So if we preview that, we'll see that we have our room 1 again, room 2, and our room 3. And now if we actually look at the data here, it's a little bit more organized. All of our one-door bases are together, our one-door talls, one-door uppers, etc. As we continue to look through here, maybe there's some organization within those that we want. Maybe we want our heights organized, or our widths, our heights, and our depths. So same concept. We can come in here and we can add in some more group header bands. We can draw them out just like we normally would, or we can start using some keyboard shortcuts like Control Copy and Control Paste. So Control C and Control V. Paste in however many we need. So I know I have my product's name. I need width, height, and depth. So that's 3 more that I need there. I'm going to come in and change my condition on it. So I can say my product's width is the first one that I want to group by. My product's depth or width, height. So I'm going to do my height. And then finally, I want to group by my depth. And so this here is the grouping condition on the data column. So while you're getting familiar with the data column and how, what's available to you, you'll probably be coming into here and, selecting the different options that are available. You also have options to go to your expression. And from your expression, you can actually change what's in here. So I already know my product's depth is just products.depth. So I can change that manually. Or same thing, I can come to my dictionary and start dragging and dropping. As you can tell here, this is the same kind of expressions that we were writing in the last session. So here we're just using one grouping condition in here. But as you get more and more experience, you can start using, more complicated expressions to get some different types of groupings down. Expressions are really the building block of the entire reporting, along with data bands. So now we have our name, width, height, and depth. And so if I preview this report, what we're going to see is, looks like my grouping is incorrect again. I'm getting a new page after. So let's see what's common here so we can start troubleshooting a little bit. I have one-door bases, but here I have one-door bases as well. I have 18, but here I have 18s. My height here is 34.5. My height here is 40. So it looks like right there, I have something going on with my grouping where it's changing after the height is changing. Even after maybe the depth. So let's go back and let's look at page 1 and see what we got. So we can check our group footer band. We can see, okay, I don't have a new page after set for group footer band 2. Group footer band 1, I do have a new page after set to true. And that is 2 components away from my data band. So if I look to 2 components away going up, I can see that my product's height. So anytime my product's height is changing, it's creating a new page after that change. So again, I want this change, this new page only to happen for my room. So in order to do that, I need to have at least the same amount of group footer bands between my last footer band as I do my room name. So I have 4 here. So I'm just going to copy and paste these guys. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. So now my new page after is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components away from my products data band, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components away from my products data band going up, and that's my room name. So now if I preview the report, we're going to see, okay, there we go. We have our room 1, room 2, room 3, and a blank one down here for some reason. So look at that. So that might go away with some of the grouping we're going to do here in a minute. So anyways, but now if we look at the report, we can see we have our one-door bases, one-door talls. Again, all those are organized. But now we actually have some organizational within those grouping, those individual groupings. We have our 18s, 34.5 to 40, 35, et cetera, and that keeps going up. So while all that's, fine and dandy, we haven't really consolidated too much information yet. We're still at about 7 pages here. If I were to take off this grouping condition down here, if I were to take that off, we'd come down to about 4 pages. Yeah, 4 pages. But I'm going to leave that on because a lot of people like to have that on there. So we'll just set that back to new page after. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to show you actually pretty quickly here is how to do a sum before we move on to consolidating information. So let's look at the report, see what we got again. So we have it separated by room. So maybe what we want to do, instead of having to count each row that's in here, we wanted to have a sum of our products per room at the end here. So what we can do is we can go down to the group footer that we want it to display at. So again, we want it to display at the, I'm going to look at the questions here really quickly. Do you have a set that is helpful with C#? Well, C# is also a Microsoft product, so MSDN should have some pretty good C# documentation, just the same way Visual Basic would be there. All right, so we're going to do a sum here, and what I'm going to do just to kind of demonstrate how the data is being printed with these footers, I'm going to place it on the first one here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop on just a normal text component, and I'll place it right about that width. I think that should be enough. I'm just going to give it a quick little title. So I'm going to say this is a product count. And then I'm going to come over to my dictionary over here on the right-hand side. And so I know this is going to be a sum of all of my products that I want. So what I'm actually going to do before I select the data that I want, I'm going to go down to the functions, because the functions where we have all these pre-programmed different things that we can use. I can see totals. I'm going to go to my totals. We have a sum category here at the bottom. There's a lot of different summing options that you can do. For now, we're just going to do the basic sum where we specify a certain parameter to it. So I'm going to drag and drop that function into here. And then I can see that I'm doing a sum of whatever is in between here. So obviously, if I'm doing a quantity of my products, I can guess that I'm going to be going into my data source, into my products table, and bringing in a quantity value. So there I have a quantity. So we can drop that in between the parentheses here. So now we're going to be doing a sum of our products quantity. And so I'll hit OK there. Shrink this down a little bit. Don't want any extra spaces showing up. So if we preview this, now what we're going to see is where we're getting our sum printed out at. So right here, we're getting our sum printed out. It looks like after every height change again, what we were doing there, or every grouping condition that was changing. So we can start saying, well, maybe that's the wrong one that we needed at. So I'm just going to Control X to cut that out of there. Maybe I want to do it for my product's name. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go to the 4th one here. Paste that in. And so if you preview that, what we're going to get is then we have a product count for each of our product's name. So I can say I have 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, which is exactly right. And then again, if I want to see it more at the room level, I can cut that out, come down to the last one, which is the 5th one associated with the product's room name grouping. Paste that into there. And when we preview that, we're going to see is at the end of our grouping here, so we'll see here is at the end of our grouping that we have our product count. So I know that I have 36 products in the room 1, 36 products in room 2, and 36 products in room 3. So hopefully that shows a little bit of how those group footer bands are interacting with the group header bands. I know sometimes that's not the easiest thing to grasp for some people. So essentially whatever conditions you set down here in your group footer bands are associated with the same group header band as far as how many components they are away from your data band. You can start to see how the entire report is really revolving around this data band. This data band is definitely showing everything that is controlling everything and what data is coming out. A couple other things we can do here. Getting a little short on time here, so we can do some filtering. Again, we talked about filtering briefly in the previous session. So just wanted to cover it again really quickly. So maybe this is a report that's specific for a certain type of cabinet. Maybe it is base cabinets specifically. So we can say, well, I want to filter out anything where the product name, or I want to allow anything through where the product name containing, and we'll just say base in here. And so if we do that, what we're going to preview the report, we'll see now, we only have our base cabinets showing up. We have 1-door bases, 2-door bases, open bases. So just a quick little way of doing the filtering there. So you can imagine the possibilities, because as you can see in here, there's a lot of different fields that you can sort by. And as we start getting into master detail reports, there's going to be even more. So I'm going to turn off that filter for now. Preview the report, make sure I'm still where I wanted to be. Actually, I'm going to save it too. So here we are. So we did all of our grouping conditions, but now let's start consolidating some data here in the last few minutes that we have. So one of the common ways people consolidate data is any product that has the same name, width, height, and depth. They want it to display in one line item with the sum of the quantities that are available, that are there. And so what we can do here, because we already added in our group header bands for our name, width, height, and depth, so we already know the order is there and the grouping is there. So now in order to consolidate data in the same manner of what we did with the room name, where we only wanted the room name printed out once if a certain condition changed, and that condition was the room name, let's say we only want a product printed out once if a certain set of conditions has changed. And those conditions are going to follow all of the ones above it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these guys, and I'm going to put them up in this last group header band where my condition is set to product's depth. And so essentially what this is going to do is anytime the room is changed, the name is changed, the width is changed, the height is changed, or the depth is changed, it's going to print out a new line with that group of products. So we can preview this, and so we can see we're down about 4 pages from the 7 that we were at. I got some weird spacing going on or something there. But now what we're going to see is we have our 1-door bases where, we have 1-door bases with 34.5, 1-door base with 40. But, the data is kind of weird because we can't really see, the quantities are there. So the quantities aren't correct. So it says we have 36 products in here, but that's definitely not 36 rows. So again, what we're going to do is similar to what we did down here with the sum, is we're going to select the product's quantity from our data band, and we're just going to add a sum into it. So we can either, drag and drop again from the system, from the functions, and do it that way. Or if we know what the function is already, we know it's a sum with the parentheses of what we're trying to total. Or sorry, that's the wrong one. So that one. So what I can also do is come up here and just manually type in sum parentheses of the product quantity, close parentheses, sum. And I can always check to see, double check, make sure we're doing it right. There you can see it's okay. So now if I preview the report, what we're going to see is now we have our quantities showing up in here. So now I can see that I have 3 1-door bases that are 18 by 40 by 23 and an eighth. I have one that's 34 by 23. So you can see quickly and easily how you can consolidate that down to, here we have about 4 pages. So I have a random grouping showing up here. It's kind of interesting. What time is it? 11:52. Well, let's look at some questions real quick here, and let's see if we have anything coming through. Doesn't look like we have any new questions. Looks like Doug has been doing pretty well at answering them. If you have any questions, please feel free to respond, place them in there. I'd be more than happy to answer. I'm going to try to see what's going on with this grouping here really quickly. So I have a header band. I have my footer band. So that's my page footer. So I'm going to get rid of that, see if that changes any behavior at all. So that's still there. So maybe I'm just closing it off at the wrong spot. Maybe I need to close it off after my data band prints out. Oh, still there. So, there's a lot of properties to play around with in here. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of poking around trying to figure out. See there, now I have 2 extra ones. So that's definitely not what I wanted to do there. That was the wrong one for sure. Let's go back to false. So see, print on. Maybe I need to do everything except for the last page. Because that would make sense. So now if we preview it, I'm still getting one on the last page. Kind of interesting. Not too sure what's going on with that one. I'll have to figure that one out, and then I'll post that on. You're all probably familiar with where the forum is, where these videos get posted. So I'll be posting on there with what I find on fixing it. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to try to figure it out and all that. So for sure. Doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in. So I think I'll hand it back to you, Clay.
All right, thanks, Lucas. And yeah, thanks once again. I think that was a lot of great information on our Report Designer tools. We had a lot of good questions, a lot of detailed questions coming in. So thanks to our techs for helping out behind the scenes to get those answered. Let me just switch things back over to myself. All right, so if you do have specific questions, ones that perhaps that you didn't get a chance to answer, or some that you could use some additional one-on-one help with, please let us know in our exit survey, and we will definitely follow up with you. Next week, we will be having another live event, and this event is going to be another Q&A live stream event. And this is a special event where we invite our top techs and our support team to help answer your questions live. So if you're looking for a quick answer or want to learn a few nice tips and tricks with your Microvellum software, I definitely encourage you to start thinking about those questions and bring them to our live streaming event happening next week, same time, same place. Before we end today's event, I'd like to highlight another event that we have coming up in September. On September 20th and 21st, we will have a 2-day training event happening in Dallas, Texas, hosted at Felder Group's Southern Division facility there in Dallas. This event will cater to those who are just getting started with Microvellum, but we'll also have time for a lot of advanced training, and with 2 of our top techs there helping out with that training. So we're looking forward to that. We'll also have some CNC demonstrations from Felder. So if you're looking at getting a new machine, that might be something you might want to attend as well for that. To register for this event, you can visit our website to learn more. So as you exit the webinar, don't forget to take our exit survey. Your feedback helps us improve these events, so let us know how we did. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on our next Microvellum Live event.